Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
Olivia gets bad news, Michael gets his way, Chase makes his case, Nathan gets a new/old job, and Charlotte takes control. As Gio and Emma are walking out of Kelly's to meet Rocco and Charlotte, they come across Ned, who's laying on the ground and heaving in the wake of a heart attack. Britt manages to save Ned's life, and he's rushed to the sanitarium, where his appearance interrupts Liz and Lucas' discussion about his decision to move to Windmere with Marco. Chase wants to clear Willow's name as acting manager, and one of Dante's first moves is to hire back Nathan. Dante says Nathan will be partnered with Chase, who needs an eye kept on him because of his conflicts of interest, especially where Willow is concerned. Speaking of which, Brooklyn is veritably worried about the fact that her hubby is intimately trying to clear Willow's name. She has numerous reasons to suppose this is a bad idea, including that it could bring him his job. But Chase prodigies if maybe the real reason she's upset is that he might prove not only Willow's innocence but Michael's guilt. As they talk, she reluctantly admits Michael might have done it, but she'd just as soon her hubby not be the one to prove it. Eventually, she tells Chase that while she does and agree with what he wants to do, the fact that he wants to do it makes her love him all the more. Willow gets a shock. Michael has regale with Jacinda, saying that if they're going to make this work, they've to get to know one another better. They agree that glamping is way better than boarding before being intruded by Nina, who brought Wiley to the eatery to get an ice cream sundae. Michael and Nina exchange hot words, with her trash talking the quantum cocotte and hanging to go to the judge. Michael suggests that Wiley's grandma has quite the history of her own, ultimately persuading her to reluctantly let Wiley enjoy his sundae with his pater. And Jacinda. Dispensable to say, when Willow arrives and sees this particular happy portrayal, she's not happy. Is Ned going to die? Lulu confides in Olivia, admitting that she'll no way be suitable to forgive Britt for having stolen her embryo. Worse, Lulu fears that her son now finds Britt a fascinating and interesting critter. Sooner or laterly, assures Olivia, Britt will lie to Rocco and show her true colors. Their Britt-bashing fest is intruded by a call from Gio, who tells Olivia about Ned's hospitalization. She rushes to the installation, only to find out that Britt was the bone who saved Ned's life. Soon, Lucas approaches and says that Ned is going to need bypass surgery. Meanwhile, Britt asks the kiddies to go to the restaurant and recoup her bag, which allows Rocco, Danny, and Charlotte to steal the crucial fob. Charlotte insists that with Gio and Emma detracted, it's up to them to move forward with the plan to break into the Lab General Hospital. Looks like Drew Kane Quartermain is about to lose his mind because Willow Tate is getting really near to bodacious operative Harrison Chase, who's her new idol. Meanwhile, Drew is being fully left in the dust like the zero he is. And he cannot handle that. We're going to talk about how Willow is counting on her ex-hubby Chase. We've seen him intent on helping her indeed, though no bone crossed any lines there. Drew's off the deep end soon. General Hospital couple shakeups coming each right, so we reported a while back on some rumors about some big couple shakeups coming to the ABC cleaner. And two of the changes we bandied tie into this. We talked about Chase getting near to Willow while his woman, Brooklyn Quartermain, gets near to her baby daddy, Dante Falconeri. So, Willow resolved from Chase about 4 times agone. If you flash back. But since also, indeed when she was with Michael Corinthos, we've seen that Chase and Willow remained musketeers for the most part. Chase's unvarying support for Willow through thick and thin on GH. Indeed, when Willow got caught up with Congressman Drew Kane, we saw Chase holding out. And he was one of the many people that didn't judge her and gave her the benefit of the mistrustfulness over and over. When dealing with Michael and Dante, we've also seen Chase constantly defend Willow, averring she's a good person and a awful mama. Chase doubled down after Willow was indicted of shooting Drew and claimed she's absolutely not the kind of person that would put a pellet in someone, much lower too, and in their reverse. So Chase has no way questioned Willow's innocence, no matter what. He's determined to prove that she's innocent in the eyes of the law, the judge, the court, and the PCPD. And that's all a big comfort to Willow. Of course, her counsel, Alexis Davis, is thrilled to have Chase working the case to help exculpate her customer. The investigation deepens on General Hospital. Chase suspects Michael is framing Willow. Chase is so convinced of her innocence that it's testing his Gemütlichkeit with Dante and with Michael. It may soon test his marriage because Brooklyn has formally noticed what he's up to. She just talked about Chase's obsession on Willow's case when she was speaking to Dante, and she said about how frequently her husband's been over at the captivity. This was news to her. Not only does Chase suppose that Willow's innocent, but he's also sure Michael is shamefaced of Drew's firing and is framing Willow. And let's be real, Dante and BLQ do suppose it's doable that Michael is the shooter that put 2 pellets in Drew's back. Right now, Chase is trying to blow up Michael's justification by chancing out if Jacinda was doing her cocotte thing and had a customer at the time that Drew was shot, meaning she cannot conceivably be his justification. That would wreck Michael's claims to innocence and destroy his justification. Relationship fallout. How Chase's mission affects his marriage on GH now. Once this comes to his attention, you'd suppose Drew would be happy about that, but I suppose he's going to freak out. Right now, Chase is veritably important, wrapped up in exculpating Willow. He's fixated on it. And of course, Willow is thrilled to have Chase in her corner, but his woman, Brooklyn, isn't thrilled. Guess who differently isn't going to be thrilled? Drew Kane. He's going to find out veritably soon the lengths that he's going to, how frequently he's been visiting. And it's going to eat him up. And we all know how he is. Lately, Dante told Brooklyn that Chase has been over to visit Willow 3 times since she was transferred to Pentonville. That was news to his woman. To her credit, Brooklyn didn't sit on this. She incontinently brazened Chase and asked him if he's trying to free Willow. He's not going to deny it. He's because Chase thinks it's the right thing to do. His motives are pure on General Hospital. He thinks his ex-wife Willow has been set up by her ex-husband Michael, which is true. And he wants to see justice done. A chillo reunion? Decrypting the bond between Willow and Chase on General Hospital. The person that's going to be worried about this way further than Brooklyn, of course, is Willow's ex-fiancé, her nearly hubby, Drew. However, that could beget problems if Brooklyn gives Chase and claim that he needs to step back from this. And he's not going to do it. However, who's Brooklyn's family? That's also a problem if Brooklyn sees that Chase is targeting Michael. But also again, he might have done it. So, we could surely be on the way to a Chase and Willow, aka Chillo reunion, but I don't suppose if it happens, it's going to be a direct route. Drew is going to find out veritably soon the lengths that Chase is going to try and save Willow. I'm sure that Alexis will tell Drew that they've gotten a big break in Willow's case since a PCPD operative is working in his off hours to exculpate her. Really, you'd suppose Drew would be happy about that because he wants Willow out of captivity now and for her no way to be condemned and go back permanently. The fact is Drew wants to be the one to save her. That way he'll ensure that Willow has to come back home to him. And they get this happily ever after that he's fixated on. Drew has no idea that Willow despises him. General Hospital. Drew notices the Chillo connection this week at Pentonville. Willow and Chase were holding hands, not in a romantic way, but in a reassuring way. Brooklyn now knows how important Chase has been visiting Willow. And she doesn't like it. Alexis might actually get Willow out on bail this week. I suspect that Drew is going to find out about the hand-holding and the comforting. He may indeed see it for himself. Formerly Willow's out of Pentonville on bail because she'll continue to meet with Chase out in public. Also Drew can see the vibe for himself and he'll misconstrue it because when he's looking at Chase and Willow, Drew is going to see it through the lens of his own obsession and misutilization when it comes to her. Drew's unethical jest and unpredictable jealousy take center stage. We do know that Willow has prevaricated to Drew to make him suppose that they'll reunite if he can get her kitties back, but Willow's hedging her bets. Let's be real. Chase is a good Joe, he loves Brooklyn. And he isn't looking to cheat. I don't suppose Willow's looking to cheat with Chase. His interest in Willow isn't romantic right now. Chase is an ethical person and he wants justice. But along the way, if Brooklyn happens to get erroneously close to Dante when she's frustrated and they're relating over Gio, and she oversteps, also yeah, I do suppose Chase might turn to Willow. As for Drew, he's unethical, period. He just appropriated a total moving truck full of Q family heritages. He left Ned Quartermain lying on the ground outside Bobby's diner, supposedly having a coronary. It's ironic that Drew took stuff that doesn't belong to him, and Chase might wind up with commodity that Drew thinks belongs to him, which is Willow. Chase is Willow's new hero on GH. I do and suppose she's looking at Chase with hearts in her eyes, but Willow does see Chase as her idol for fighting this battle while she's stuck behind bars. Plus, he keeps bringing Willow updates on her kitties. And that means a lot to her. But Drew is presumably going to assume the worst of Chase and suppose he's coming between them. That could put Chase at the top of Drew's adversaries list. I just hope that Drew doesn't sabotage Chase's sweats to save Willow because he wants to be the one to save her and be her idol. She'll be frightened if Drew targets Chase or sabotages his sweats. But at the same time, Willow shouldn't be surprised. She knows what and just how awful Drew is. He's a gourmandizer. He's terrible. I do see Willow and Chase reuniting at some point. But only if Brooke Lynn crosses the line first with Dante. And she might. But the biggest peril in all this is Drew. He has no tone control when it comes to Willow. There's no telling how far he might go when he freaks out over Chase getting near and trying to help Willow. Drew's going to lose it. And no telling what happens from there. The heart of the matter, a crisis on the cobblestones. The morning air in Port Charles, often thick with unspoken tensions and simmering drama, was pierced by a genuine, unscripted cry of alarm. The scene was not one of the usual haunts, a shady alley or a corporate boardroom, but the familiar, warm confines of Kelly's diner. As Giovanni Gio Palmieri and Emma Scorpio Drake exited the establishment, their minds on the simple, youthful plan of meeting Rocco Falconeri and Charlotte Cassadine, they stumbled upon a sight that would freeze the blood of any onlooker. Ned Quartermain, a man synonymous with the city's power and history, was collapsed on the ground, his body racked with agony, gasping for the breath that his own heart was denying him. The response was immediate and visceral. Emma, drawing on a lifetime of exposure to medical crises through her parents, sprang into action, her voice cutting through the panic to call for an ambulance. But it was the arrival of Dr. Britt Westbourne that transformed the scene from one of horror to one of focused, desperate hope. Pushing through the gathering crowd, Britt dropped to her knees, her medical training overriding any personal turmoil. The compressions of CPR are a brutal, physical poetry, a stark, rhythmic battle against the silence of a stilled heart. In that moment, Britt was no longer the complicated woman with a checkered past, she was a conduit of life, her hands fighting to pull Ned back from the brink. Her success in restoring a heartbeat was a fleeting victory, a temporary stay of execution. As she accompanied his gurney into the ambulance, her face was a mask of professional determination, a doctor fully invested in her patient's survival. This act of public heroism, however, was unfolding in the shadow of a private betrayal. Unbeknownst to Britt, the very children she had entrusted with a simple errand were orchestrating a plot against her. Charlotte Cassadine, a girl whose innocence was being systematically eroded by adult manipulation, had enlisted Danny and Rocco in a dangerous mission. Their objective was Britt's key fob, a small piece of plastic that represented access to the hospital's most secure laboratory. The genuine medical emergency that summoned Britt away became, in a cruel twist of fate, the perfect, unscheduled diversion for Charlotte's scheme. As Britt fought for a man's life, a child was preparing to gamble with the safety of many, a chilling juxtaposition of selflessness and reckless ambition. The chaos of Ned's arrival at General Hospital sent ripples through the institution, interrupting other, more personal dramas. Elizabeth Baldwin and Lucas Jones were deep in conversation, with Lucas sharing his decision to move to Windmere with Marco Rios. Liz's concern was palpable. Windmere was not just a house, but a monument to the Cassadine family's dark legacy, a place steeped in tragedy and secrets. Lucas, however, defended his choice with a firm resolve. For him, it was not a step into darkness, but a step toward building a new, independent life, a chance to create his own history within the ancient walls. Seeing the sincerity in his eyes, Elizabeth ultimately offered her support, a quiet testament to a friendship that had weathered many storms. The shields and the swords, alliances and accusations. As the medical team, led by Lucas, worked to stabilize Ned, the parallel dramas of Port Charles continued to unfold, each one a reflection of the city's fractured state. A badge and a burden at the PCPD. At the Port Charles Police Department, a significant shift in power was taking place. With Commissioner Anna Devane on a leave of absence for WSB business, Dante Falconeri found himself in the role of acting commissioner. His first major decision was a controversial one, reinstating Detective Nathan West. The move was pragmatic, the department was stretched thin and needed experienced hands, but it was not without its risks. Dante was acutely aware of the significant blanks in Nathan's memory, a lingering concern from past traumas that Anna herself had been hesitant to overlook. The meeting between the two men was a blend of professionalism and personal history. Dante was direct, confirming Nathan had passed his psych evaluation and that the department needed him. The assignment was specific: Nathan would be partnered with Harrison Chase. Dante's reasoning was twofold. Chase was an excellent detective, but he was also dangerously compromised by his personal connections, particularly his unresolved feelings and sense of obligation toward Willow Tate. Dante needed Nathan to be more than a partner, he needed him to be a stabilizer, a seasoned eye to keep Chase's noble but potentially career-ending crusade in check. As Dante handed over the badge and service weapon, the symbolic weight of the moment was immense. The embrace that followed was a genuine welcome back, a restoration of purpose for Nathan, even as it placed a heavy burden of oversight upon his shoulders. Domestic strife in the Quartermaine mansion. While Nathan was reclaiming his identity, another man was risking his. At the Quartermaine mansion, Brooke Lynn Quartermaine was in a state of near panic, confronting her husband, Chase, over his clandestine mission to prove Willow Tate's innocence. To Brooke Lynn, this was not a noble quest, it was a direct path to professional suicide. He was jeopardizing his career, their financial stability, and their standing within a community that was fiercely divided on the matter. The argument quickly escalated beyond professional concerns. Chase, perceptive and weary of the constant shadow of the Corinthos family, voiced the suspicion lurking beneath his wife's anger. He challenged her, wondering aloud if her true fear was not for him, but for what his investigation might uncover, specifically, the potential to prove Michael Corinthos's guilt. This accusation laid bare the fundamental tension in their marriage, the unspoken loyalty to family name and the complicated history they both shared with Michael. In a moment of raw honesty, Brooke Lynn reluctantly conceded that Michael might indeed be capable of the crime, but she pleaded with Chase not to be the one to expose it. She saw the inevitable fallout, the ostracization, the endless war with the powerful Corinthos family. Yet, as she looked at her husband, she saw the unshakable integrity that defined him. Chase articulated his position with a simple, powerful clarity: to stand by and allow an innocent woman to be condemned was a moral failure he could not abide. The burden of inaction would be a heavier weight than any professional consequence. Seeing the profound conviction in his eyes, Brooke Lynn's resistance crumbled. Her ultimate declaration, that while she disagreed with his actions, the passion and principle behind them made her love him all the more, was a pivotal moment of acceptance, solidifying their union even as it headed into turbulent waters. A garden of deception at the Metro Court. The most psychologically charged confrontation of the day was playing out in the serene, open-air setting of the Metro Court Gardens. Here, Michael Corinthos was staging an elaborate piece of theater. Seated with Jacinda, a woman known in certain circles as a high-end escort, he was carefully cultivating the image of a man moving on, building a new, glamorous life. The performance, complete with shared wine and intimate conversation about the merits of glamping over camping, was a meticulously constructed lie. Designed for a single, specific audience, Nina Reeves. Nina, wielding her temporary custody of Wiley like a weapon, arrived precisely on cue. Her intention was to shatter Michael's facade, to expose his romantic act for the court-ordered charade it was. She presented Wiley, expecting the child's presence to create a dissonant, awkward tension that would reveal Michael's insincerity. Michael, however, was a master strategist. He seamlessly integrated his son into the narrative, warmly introducing him to Jacinda and orchestrating a happy, ice cream sundae celebration. He was painting a picture of a perfect, budding family, and he was forcing Nina to hold the brush. Their subsequent private confrontation was a verbal duel of naked threats and seething resentment. Nina trash-talked Jacinda, labeling her a hooker and vowing to document it all for the judge. Michael's retaliation was not one of panic, but of chilling, calculated confidence. He countered by subtly reminding Nina of her own sordid history, her own past instability and manipulations. He made it clear that any war she wanted to wage would be mutually assured destruction. He predicted that by the time their custody hearing arrived, Willow would be permanently incarcerated, her fate sealed. His calm assurance was more terrifying than any outburst. Defeated, Nina was forced to relent, allowing the sickeningly sweet tableau to continue. The final, devastating blow came moments later. Willow, having been miraculously sprung on bail thanks to Alexis Davis's legal prowess, arrived at the Metro Court, her spirit buoyed by a taste of freedom. The sight that greeted her was a visceral punch to the gut. There was her husband, the man for whom she was fighting a legal battle, laughing and enjoying an intimate, family-like moment with another woman and her son. The joy of her release was instantly annihilated by a wave of shock, confusion, and profound betrayal. Her face, a canvas of shattered illusions, signaled that the Cold War between Michael and Nina was about to ignite a personal inferno that would consume them all. Converging paths, the hospital as epicenter. Back at General Hospital, the waiting room had become a pressure cooker of anxiety and unresolved history. Olivia Quartermain, having been interrupted by Joe's devastating phone call, had rushed to the facility with Lulu Spencer in tow. Before the crisis, the two women had been engaged in a session of shared commiseration, with Lulu confessing she could never forgive Britt for the theft of her embryo. Her fear was compounded by Rocco's apparent fascination with the very woman who had violated their family. Olivia, ever the protective mother-in-law, readily agreed, declaring Britt a horror show and assuring Lulu that eventually, Britt's true colors would show to Rocco as well. The irony, therefore, was thick and bitter when they arrived at the hospital and were immediately informed by a grateful Gio and Emma that Britt Westbourne was the heroic doctor who had saved Ned's life. The object of their vilification was now, unquestionably, their savior. It was a narrative whiplash that left both women reeling, forced to confront the complex, contradictory nature of a person they had so easily dismissed as a monster. The tension was further amplified when Lucas emerged with a grave update. Ned was not responding to standard medication. The damage from the heart attack was too severe, the blockage too critical. The only path forward was an emergency bypass surgery, a high-risk, invasive procedure that laid bare the true gravity of the situation. The news cast a pall of terrified silence over the family, their personal grievances momentarily eclipsed by the stark reality of potential loss. Amidst this high-stakes medical drama, the children's plot continued to advance. Britt, realizing her purse was missing, made a simple, trusting request of Charlotte, Danny, and Rocco: could they please check Kelly's for her bag? The request played directly into their hands. With the bag successfully retrieved, Charlotte now possessed the coveted key fob. A phone call to Emma revealed that she and Gio were far too preoccupied with the hospital crisis to leave. For most, this would have been a reason to abort the mission. For Charlotte, however, driven by a warped sense of urgency and the shadowy influence of the adults manipulating her, it was a call to action. She insisted to the boys that with their original lookouts sidelined, the responsibility fell to them. The chaos at the hospital provided the perfect cover. Tonight was their only chance to break into the lab. The die was cast, setting the stage for a decision whose consequences would ripple far beyond their understanding. Epilogue: the calm before the storm. As the sun set on Port Charles, the city was left balancing on a knife's edge. In one wing of General Hospital, a man's life hung in the delicate hands of a surgical team, his survival uncertain. In the corridors of the same building, a doctor, hailed as a hero by some and a horror by others, remained unaware of the betrayal being orchestrated by the very children she sought to trust. At the PCPD, a reinstated detective began a new partnership built on the foundation of monitoring a conflicted colleague, while across town, a wife had pledged her support to her husband's morally righteous but perilous mission. And in a garden now empty save for the ghost of a shattered illusion, a mother stood alone, the image of her family's replacement seared into her mind. The baptism of this tumultuous day was over, but it had not cleansed, it had set the stage for the firestorm to come. The threats had been issued, the alliances forged, and the control, as Charlotte so ominously declared, had been taken. The only certainty was that the dawn would bring new confrontations, and the fragile peace of Port Charles was about to be shattered.